And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. We've got degrading sunspots, guest announcements, and more coming to the Smash News Network. Here's the sun in 171 angstroms from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. My favorite wavelength. Let us know what yours is in the comments. Also, don't forget to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. We've got some other wavelengths to show you, of course. First, a colorized magnetogram to show you degrading sunspots. This area up here, no longer a sunspot. All we've got is 2904 at the moment. This one may get a name, 2905. It has not been particularly active in the past 24. So it looked like activity was coming up yesterday. Not so much today. Here's 304 angstroms. Or it should be. There we go. Ionized helium. And we do have a coronal mass ejection watch remaining in effect here. Again, the radio flux only at 80 right now. And there's the 1 year chart of that. That's from solon.info. It's also shown on the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. And Noaa forecasting a brief period of geomagnetic unrest here on the 15th. Let's look at seismicity. There's the 90-day bar graph for earthquake activity. And here's the map. It looks like nothing in the 6 magnitude over the past 24 hours. Some deep quakes, such as these at Indonesia and at Argentina. Again, no major quakes over the past 24. There was a 4.4 off the coast of Oregon. A 5.2 in the Kuriles Islands was one of the larger quakes of the past 24. South of Africa, there's an odd spot for a quake near the African-Antarctican plate boundaries. And let's continue up the list here. We don't want to spend too much time on this. There was one south of Fiji here at a 5.1 magnitude. That one over 550 kilometers estimated depth. And it looks like the largest quake of the past 24 was a deep quake in Mexico. There you go. There you go, a 5.7 near El Pacayal in Mexico. 5.7 magnitude at 180 kilometers estimated depth. Philippines saw a 5.5 at depth. So quite a bit of deep quakes there happening in the past 24. Let's move on to volcanoes. And the Grimsvötn ice sheet is expected to reach maximum flood in the next 5 to 10 days. It's dropped another 60 centimeters. It's a huge ice sheet. And it's dropping as a result of volcanic melt. So as it reaches the outlet of Skjárhalladal, Halajökull, I don't know, I have no idea how to pronounce that. So some flooding forecasted there as a result of that ice sheet dropping and melt underneath the ice sheet. La Palma continues to explode, producing a 10,000-foot ash plume there at La Palma. Sakurajima, low-level eruptive activity at Sakurajima, flight level 080. It's an 8,000-foot ash plume. Luitolo exploding. 7,000-foot ash plume from Luitolo. And Awu, never heard of it, located near Sulawesi and Sangihe Islands. The alert level has been raised to level 2 with an increase in seismic activity. People and tourists are advised to avoid the crater in a radius of 1 kilometer there at Awu. Fuego exploding, 15,000-foot ash plume from Fuego. That's located in Guatemala. Nevado del Ruiz exploding, 21,000-foot ash plume over Colombia from Nevado del Ruiz. Sabancaya intermittent emissions. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Nevados de Chilean volcanic ash not detected. Links below this video are detected. Please visit our merch links. If you enjoy the content, you want to support us via picking up some real-world items. There are hundreds and hundreds of them at the Redbubble shop. So check it out. You can find links at smAsho.com as well as below the video. Today's featured product is all of them, as we implore you to make Earth not suck again. Thanks to everybody who picked up merch and to everybody who's become a member of the Smash Team. smAsho.com/Smash Team. We replaced Patreon for crowdfunding with something superior, our own website, smAsho.com/Smash Team. Give the gift of ringtones this year. We'll be putting up continued free posts throughout the remainder of the year at smAsho.com/Smash Team. We put up a ringtone last night. It's kind of freaky. Also, disaster reports now showing up for everybody through the remainder of the year, thanks to especially our silver and gold paid up annual subscription members at smAsho.com/Smash Team. You can find links at the homepage to that, as well as to the merch shop that we just showed you there at the merch link, as well as links below the video. Let's get to magnetic data. Here's the GOES magnetometers over the past 3 days measuring the magnetic field around Earth. Some significant swings there. The GOES 16 and GOES 17 are now converging a bit. You can see their magnetometer readings here are reaching a more similar level now, following a divergence around midnight local time for the GOES 17. That's what that blue letter means there. That's midnight local time for the GOES 17. And let's take a look at the current sheet. There could be a North Pole current sheet headed this way, but at the moment we don't see any sign of it. This entire side of the sun is a South Pole current sheet. The other side, a North Pole current sheet, shown in green. Here's a line of sight view. Again, sunspots have degraded. Yesterday we were saying they grew. Today we were saying they shrunk, because by yesterday they grew and by today they shrunk. Next, coronal holes. You can see some non-trans-equatorial coronal holes here of South Pole orientation. In other words, they're not making it to the solar equator, as the progression of solar cycle 25 continues in a very slow fashion. Here's a visual analysis of it. 193 angstroms is great at showing coronal holes. One just rotating out of the Earth-facing zone here, and another about to rotate in ahead of possible sunspot 2905. That's this area here. Let's take a look at that. Oh, that could be 2906 rather. So this one could get a name down here. This did show umbra when we did show prep. 2905 remains a beta class sunspot, but again, it's degraded since yesterday. Looking kind of weak actually. Likelihood of major flares not all that high. It's actually lower than it was yesterday from the moment that we made the video. So that's the situation for solar flaring. Again, coronal mass ejection watch remains in effect. We'll get to it in a minute. Here's the flaring profile. There was a C-class flare. It was small. Peak flux was at 2110 last night. 2110 universal time last night. There was a C-class flare. And no spikes in the proton flux of note. What about the real-time solar wind? Pretty unremarkable over the past 24 hours. Current conditions are solar wind density 14 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed only 314 kilometers per second. It's a slow, moderately dense solar wind. That was enough to bring the KP index up to 3 for a while. Now it's back down to 2. Geomagnetic calm conditions have persisted for a long time. And here's a model of the Earth's geospace. It's Earth's magnetic moment from space, as modeled by the Space Weather Modeling Framework. It uses a lot of different data points, folks. Magnetometers, solar wind data, electron flux, etc. to arrive at these models. It's 4 hours of data, and it's pretty unremarkable. Pretty homogeneous magnetohydrodynamic pressure here from Earth's space magnetic moment. Here's Earth's magnetic moment on the ground. changes to Earth's B field, geospace delta B, changes to the field that passes through Earth as a magnet. The magnetic field passing through the magnet is the B field. We showed you the solar B field in the coronal hole imagery. Here is Earth's B field in magnetic flux density on the surface for the past 4 hours. And next here is a diagram of the solar system. And as we're wont to do daily, we show you a 1-week forecast. We'll be past the next full moon by then. Full moon coming in 5 to 6 days. There's where things will be on the 20th, 7 days from now on January 20th. Only 5 days from Christmas at that point. And next, a star chart. You can see Mars and the Sun rising there. Is that Mercury? And indeed, it's Mercury. So Mercury rising behind the Sun there. You won't see it. It's too bright. Mercury's a pretty dim planet. Anyway, that's our star chart, and I've lost control of my own browser. That's in-the-sky.org. Mine's facing the south. If you want to put in your location to create a star chart for yourself, I'm using the all sky chart here from in-the-sky.org. Today's coronal hole monitor is going to feature views from Lagrange point 1 as we're getting old data from stereo A. No solar flares have happened. The LASCO C2 and C3 are coronagraphs from the SOHO spacecraft located here between Earth and Sun at Lagrangian point 1. Coronal mass ejection watch remains in effect, folks. We've been wrong one time about our coronal mass ejection watches in the past year. And it was only because I shut off a watch that I should have left in place. And let's do a brief cosmology segment. We're going to pick a random number. Today's random number is 4. Which coincides with something at the Neil Gehrels Swift-Bat X-ray Observatory. And here it is. It's quasar B0016 plus 73. There it is in hard X-ray. The historic 16-year graph in the upper right, the 30-year graph in the lower left. And let's bring up Simbad to link us to the CDS portal to take a look at this. We'll take a look at this quasar in a couple wavelengths. So here it is on the DSS-2. We're going to zoom in a little bit, and then we're going to switch to Pan-STARRS. I think there's going to be a little higher resolution there. There's the view from Pan-STARRS. That's visible bands, by the way, bands Z and G. Here it is in ultraviolet. Does it show up? Indeed, there is a bit of a signal there in ultraviolet. How about an X-ray, you ask? And while this is an X-ray source, it's not super bright, it looks like. Showing up in a couple surveys there as sort of a diffuse bright spot in X-ray frequencies. And let's take a look at infrared. And here's the 2MASS, a very reliable quality survey. Little bit of a signal there in infrared light. Again, that's quasar B0016 plus 73, which is entry number 4 at the Neil Gehrels Swift-Bat X-ray Observatory. BAT stands for Burst Alert Telescope. It's monitoring 1,051 objects in X-ray frequency. Again, there it is in infrared. It's a quasar, today's featured cosmic object. That was yesterday's. And let's take a look at the astronomy picture of the day. I'm seeing it for the first time myself. It's some aurorae and a geminid, it looks like. Yeah, meteors over Iceland. Anyway, if you want to check that out yourself, it's at apod.nasa.gov. And that's today's cosmology segment. Let's blast through more data. We do see some minor charging hazards here. On the surface of satellites near equatorial orbits, just north of the equator there, out in places around Hawaii, for example. Some surface charging hazards out there. Electron flux levels are just in a moderate range here. And there's your 3-day electron flux graph from the GO 16 and 17 measurements. Next, the total electron content forecast, right after we show you the forecast model. There's the Noaa Forecast, the green boxes. And here comes the total electron content forecast. It's the total electron content between your GPS satellite and your handset. It's basically the electron content of the inner Van Allen belt. So some anomalies in the southern Indian Ocean there. We'll let it play through a second time. Again, this shows you where GPS errors are most likely to occur. Some anomalous GPS readings there over places like North America, actually. And around Madagascar, some anomalies happening there in the electron flux. Next, we're going to show you the F ionosphere layer, located about 300 kilometers of altitude. So here's your ionogram. We show it daily on the Daily Space Weather. And we'll also show you the anomalogram. This is in megahertz. So this data here, each colored band here is vibrational frequency in megahertz, millions of vibrations per second. It's courtesy of the Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. And shout out to Kimberly. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. Here's the anomalogram showing you anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. Continued anomalies here around the Drake Passage, so that's interesting. You see these anomalies right here, just centered on the Drake Passage. Also, sudden shifts from low to high frequency anomaly over Antarctica, and indeed over the South Pacific Ocean. There's dry air down there. If you don't watch our meteorology segments, you might not know about it. Make sure you check our playlists for all kinds of other videos. YouTube.com/smashamash/playlists. Here's the ionogram from 13:15 Universal Time. That's 1:15 Greenwich Mean Time. And there's 13:15 on the anomalogram. And let's do bonus features. Starting with the announcement of a guest coming soon, Tamitha Skov. Thanks for the great video on the ionosphere. She did a 4-hour live stream about the inner workings of the ionosphere. And we'll be bringing Tamitha on the channel soon. Dr. Skov is highly qualified for doing space weather, to the point where she's doing certifications for Millersville University. So check out her YouTube page. Perhaps she'll endorse us on the YouTube page. Shout out to Tamitha. And here's a little clip from the video that she did over the weekend.
So now
we spend plenty of time talking about things like field-aligned currents and so on, and she goes way deep into Hall currents and Peterson currents and so forth, the inner workings of the ionosphere. So check that out. Again, it's a 4-hour deep dive mini course on the ionosphere, Weather Ballet Part 2. So check that out on her page. And again, don't forget to check our meteorology segments as well. Here's our next bonus feature, the ground-based solar observatory at El Teide, Spain. And you can see some filaments there, some of those dark regions. Those are absorption features. The brighter regions are emission features at 6,562.8 angstroms. It's hydrogen alpha imagery. Coronal mass ejection watch remains in effect. Here's the NASA GOES 16 SUVI imagery, 304 angstroms. You can see some prominences there. Great views there, auto-refreshing thanks to the GOES 16 SUVI page. Next, your latest intensity and latest magnetogram. So we have a small umbra there, and we certainly have 2 small umbrae there. That's still beta class, the most likely place to see major flares, or I'll say significant flares, is from this region. Otherwise, lower solar activity than yesterday. We'll close out the video with 2 more SDO animations. There should be a C-class flare in there, and indeed you can see it coming out of this active region here. Maybe there are more sunspots trailing that, but it certainly looks like most of it is already in view now. Again, coronal mass ejection watch remains in effect. Solar flare watch, not all that high. Not all that likely to see major flares. We'll close out with a composite here. This is 335 and 94 angstroms together. The soothing blue tones are where we'll close out today's video. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. May that solar wind be at your back. opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted. Name in news.